Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, and today I just wanted to make a video on how and why I decided to become a truck driver out of all things. I also wanted to kind of make this video as well to maybe fill in a couple of details for people that are looking into getting their CDLs and becoming a truck driver as well, whether you're male or female, or whether you've done your research, or maybe you haven't really started doing your research, but you're looking for an outlet to kind of gain knowledge, and to also give you guys advice on things that you should do and things that you probably should avoid. Because I certainly wish that it was a lot more videos back when I started getting my license and truck driving, for me to know better and avoid a lot of the things that happen. But nonetheless, here I am. I've made it through some crazy situations and able to share my knowledge that I've kind of compiled thus far with you guys. So without further ado, here we go. My trucking journey started, and also if you guys see me looking down, I made notes so I don't forget the important things that I do want to touch on. The first thing that I think is what's on most people's minds is the why I decided to be a truck driver. And long story short, and to keep it short and simple, my dad was the inspiration as to why I wanted to become a truck driver. Growing up, being a 9-year-old little kid, my dad was driving over the road. I think at that time, the company that he was with was Pam Transport, if I'm not mistaken. He's driven over the years because he's been driving for about 30 plus years now, I believe. But back then I think it was with Pam, and obviously since then he's driven for a couple of other different companies. But that was definitely my introduction, and where the kind of fascination that I have now for truck driving came from was him. So after that, how I kind of started, or where I started for truck driving, for those who don't know, there's primarily two routes to get your CDL. One is obviously, coming out of pocket yourself to cover the cost of getting, training and learning how to do all the stuff that you need to pass the exam and stuff. And that will cost you a couple $1,000s. On the low end, I want to say maybe 4 or 5. On the high end, probably 7 or 8, I think, depending on where you go to get your CDL or how you decide to do for it. But me being a young 21-year-old, and I think at the time I was working at Publix, I did not have that kind of money to come out of pocket, certainly, to pay for truck driving school. No matter how much I wanted to get started, I wasn't making that kind of money. So that option was out. So my next option was going the second route, which is finding a company paid training program. Which is basically where you find a company carrier, and they say, hey, we'll take you in as a student, we'll provide the training for you, and we'll pay the cost for it. In exchange, after you get your CDL, you come and work with us for X amount of time. So in my case, I went with CRE. So for those of you who don't know, CRE stands for CR England, and I started training with them in 2019, specifically April 7th of 2019. So I basically signed up online, filled out their application, and then I think they got back to me within 2 to 3 days. It might have been shorter, I think maybe a day or two. Someone got back to me and set up for a Greyhound bus ticket from Atlanta to go to Valparaiso, Indiana, to do the orientation process, because they do have a location, I believe, in Atlanta, but at the time spots were already filled for the training to start at Atlanta. So the next place that I could go to that still had availability open was in Valparaiso. So that's why I ended up getting the bus ticket to go all the way up north during winter season at that, but we'll touch on that a little bit later as I go down. So to break down basically the orientation process that happened at CR England, it was through Premier Truck Driving School, which is basically the truck driving, I guess, like learning school that they use as a company to train their drivers. And in exchange, I didn't have to pay anything up front, like I said, because it was company provided training. The exchange for them, they wanted you to work a year for them after you got your CDL license. So you would have to sign a contract for a year with them in order for you to not have to pay anything at all once you were done. Like, after you worked the year, you didn't owe them any money. I think if you were a veteran, you only had to work with them for 9 months, and then you can, if you want to stay there, you can. If you wanted to go somewhere else, you can. But if you were a veteran, you had to work there for 9 months. If you weren't, and you were just a normal, average Joe coming in and signing a contract with them to get your CDL, you had to stay for a year. So, and by the way, I also want to disclose, it was not paid training for CR England. They don't pay you during the time that you're going through the CDL training process to get your license. So it most definitely is advised that you bring your own money for, I want to say, at least 2 to 2.5 weeks worth of money to kind of square yourself away while you're doing that, because they don't pay you during that time. I know some places maybe they do, but for CR England, they don't pay you for that process. So it is advised that you do bring your own money while you're going through that. So like I said, they basically sent me a bus ticket from Atlanta to go to Valparaiso. We were staying in a Travelodge Inn, and we had a roommate. So the program was 17 days. I know that's not really a lot of time, but for me and how I learn, I managed to kind of make it work and, do my own putting 2 and 2 together. If I wasn't really sure about something, I would ask questions and whatnot, but it would be probably a little bit better if they had it longer, because I know some companies, their training time is longer, but for CR England, it is only a 17-day program to get your CDL. But like I said, we were staying at the Travelodge Inn. We had a roommate, and it would be either, since I was a woman, I partnered with another female. If I was a boy, I would pair with another male. So I had a female partner that I shared with, and I didn't really know that was something that they didn't really tell me when I was like going over with the coordinator to get up there. They kind of failed to mention that part, that we would be sharing a room with someone, because I'm very particular about cleanliness. This person was not the cleanliest. She smoked. She ended up stealing money from me. I think like $50 when I had like left my bags and stuff in the room, because she couldn't go to the training, I think, one day, because she she was waiting on taking her drug testing, and she couldn't move forward past that point and kind of go out with everybody else to start doing like the trucks and stuff until she did that portion. So she was still in the room and I was, you know, out and going to do the training with everybody else, and she went in my things and stole $50 from me. So yeah, I wasn't very happy about that, but you know, it is what it is. She did end up getting kicked out because she failed her drug exam. So I mean, that's kind of another thing. You do have to make sure that you're not doing any type of drugs or anything like that, obviously, to get your CDL, because they do drug test you. Some places only do urine, some places do urine and hair, some places do hair only. It really depends on what company that you are looking to work for. But in CR England's case, they do both hair and urine. So what they covered basically during the orientation process, it was a mixture of classroom time, training in the truck, and also just like road time. So the road time was more so towards the end of the 17 days. They didn't, I think it was maybe like a day or two of that, but a majority of it was the classroom time, and then driving around the yard area where they set up for like the exercises for backing and stuff like that. We learned safety procedures, mechanical operations, and log requirements, which are very important. That was part of what we covered for, I think, a good majority of the first 2 days when we were in classroom time. And then we learned how to turn the tractor and trailer, handling railroad crossings, intersections, driving in city and highway traffic, backing up the tractor and trailer, which for the backing maneuvers, they taught the alley dock, parallel, offset left and right, straight line, and the 45 and 90 degree, I believe. Yeah, I think so. But it definitely was alley docking, parallel, offset left and right, and straight line backing. We learned coupling and uncoupling of the it's escaping my mind right now. We learned coupling and uncoupling of the tractor to the trailer is what I'm trying to say. My mind is just everywhere right now. And then we spent a very, very hefty amount on doing inspections. So pre-trip, we went through the full entire DOT inspection from top to bottom, bottom to top, et cetera, because that was the one thing that if you can know everything else, but if you don't pass your pre-trip, you can't even show them that you know how to back or do anything else, because they will fail you on your exam, and that's it. You have to come back for another try. So, and they also taught you the brake check, which is, I think, the second portion that you do after your pre-trip when you get inside the cab. So with that, I will say, I'm going to be honest, I did fail my first time. So when I went into the program, I had already took it upon myself to get from the DMV my permit. I had my permit already when I went to training for CR England. So for me, I didn't have to go through doing both parts, because they, for the most part, I think most of the students there, except for maybe 2 or 3 others outside of myself, had already came with their permit, so they didn't have to go through the part where you take a day and then they send those batch of people over to the DMV to test and get their permit, and then they come back and then you do the rest of the training with everybody else, and then on the last, I think, couple of days, you do your actual CDL exam. And then whether you pass or fail or not, that determines whether or not you get your license. So I only had to do the last part. So for the entire duration of the first like 2 weeks, I was just steadily, doing classroom time, learning the backing maneuvers, and also just kind of learning the pre-trip. I spent a lot focusing on the pre-trip because that was the most worrisome part about me, for me, was the pre-trip, because it's overwhelming. From someone who's never been behind the wheel of a truck before, it's a lot to learn. It's a lot that you have to repeat and recite to the instructor, the examiner, to let them know that you know what you're looking for on the pre-trip and how to, there's someone walking by the truck, and let them know what you're talking about. So like saying that the weather seals are not cracked, bent, broken, or otherwise unusable. You would say that for every single part of the truck, everything under the hood, all the hoses, all the clamps, making sure your fluid levels are filled. You would check the tire pressure and the tread depth, and making sure that those are up to standard, making sure that the lights and the amber markers and everything works, looking underneath the truck from the front view, making sure that there's no leaks or anything. And then you'd walk around the entire portion of the truck, starting from standing directly like in front of the truck. You'd move over to the driver's side, come down the driver's side of the tractor, and then move on to the driver's side of the trailer. After you do the middle and the coupling part with your service and emergency hookups and the electrical hookup, making sure that everything is good there. There's no abrasions or like otherwise something that would make it unusable to couple onto the trailer and make the proper connections. Move down the side of the trailer, checking under on the cross frame, the landing gear, the mud flaps, the fifth wheel, and making sure the kingpin and the locking jar are good. And then check the lights on the driver's side first, the license plate light. Look overall the back of the trailer, checking everything else there. The doors close and open properly. There's no bends or anything like that, wonky looking, that'll make it unsafe for the trailer to be taken out on the road. Then you'd go around to the passenger side, same thing up the passenger side, or at least I don't think you have to say it again because it's just the same thing that was on the driver's side, but you do have to kind of point out at least and let them know that that's what you're supposed to be looking for. And then once you do that, you come back up on the passenger side of the tractor and then make your way kind of full circle around. And if you make it through that portion all good and clear, then you would proceed to come inside the cab, start the inspection part inside the cab area, doing your brake check and make sure, because I think that was one of the things back when I was going in that they were very stressed on, is to make sure that when you do the portion where you're getting to tell them the gauges and stuff and letting them know what's on the dash and what's going on there, that you actually let the gauges sweep and then settle back. Because I know there was one student that he was doing great, and then he got inside the cab and forgot to let the gauges sweep, and they failed him because they were like, yeah, you forgot to do this one little thing. So it was very minor things that they would fail you for, unfortunately. And I think there were 3 instructors that were doing the exam, and I ended up getting the worst one. They called him the Terminator, and that was mostly because students never really passed the inspection when they had him. He was very intimidating, to say the least. And I think that despite all of like me knowing, because I hammered it into my head constantly, like everything to do with the pre-trip, like I was up first thing in the morning, like as soon as they let us come outside, that was the first thing I was doing. I would like, you know, go and pull a trainer and ask them to like kind of watch me walk through everything and kind of point out if I forgot something, or like how they would potentially grade me on my mock walkthrough. I was doing everything that I could, and I unfortunately got paired with this man. My nerves got the best of me, and I ended up failing my first time taking my CDL exam on the pre-trip. So I didn't even get to show them, you know, how good I was at backing or anything like that. And y'all, when I tell you, I cried because I stressed myself out so much, learning everything, being up from 7 o'clock in the morning all the way up until like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, every day doing the training, starting with the classroom time, then going to like out in the yard to practice backing and learning all this new information to me, only to fail before I could even get to show them that I really knew anything. And it was overwhelming, like really overwhelming. And yes, like, you know, after, you know, them telling me like, okay, well, you know, you didn't pass the first time, I thought that was just like it. I didn't know that, like, you know, like what was going to happen after that. And they basically told me that once I failed, I do have to go back to, you know, a day or two of going back to the trainings and stuff, and just taking more time to learn a little bit more stuff, go like review some things and review the pre-trip portion, and I would get to try again in 3 days, I think, was when I retested. So I retested after 3 days, and thank the Lord I did not get that same man again, because I am almost certain I would have failed again for the second time had I got that same person. Because I really do think that a huge part of it, it wasn't that I didn't know what I was doing, it was the intimidation and the nerves that were like going haywire everywhere in my mind. I couldn't concentrate, and I was just like, it was a frenzy of things going on, and I just, you know, word vomited, and just like I forgot things that I knew, and that probably was one thing that ended up like killing me the most, because I was like, damn, I know these things, I know them, but it didn't come out how I wanted it to, and it was just like, ugh. Okay, but yeah, that was, you know, I failed the first time. I came back 3 days later and did it again, made it, thank goodness, through the pre-trip entirely, and then got inside, did spectacular on, you know, the air brake test and the gauges, and letting them know like everything inside the truck, and doing that part. And then, you know, what else, doing the road test portion and the backing. So after, I think directly after the pre-trip portion, we moved on to the backing portion, and I was nervous on that part to do the parallel parking. And yes, I know, in hindsight now, because now that I've been driving for almost 2 years with my license, you really don't, or I haven't at least, had to parallel park at all. In this truck, I haven't really had to offset back or alley dock. I've really only had to either straight line or like a close quarter maneuver to back into a space. But it does come in handy, because I know there are some places where those types of backing may be required. Like I know sometimes up north, and depending on where you're delivering, you may have to alley dock, but thank goodness I have not encountered one of those places yet. where I have had to use those things. So for the most part, yes, they do teach them. I did well. I barely got it for a pass on the parallel parking, because I think I almost didn't make one of the cones. I got it in, but I almost hit one of the cones that were on the driver's side when I was lining up, but it was just like a literally a hair of an inch off before touching it, and they let me pass because I didn't knock over the cone. So yeah, had I not have like been like, yeah, let me just stop right here, this is good, I would have not passed that portion and would have had to come back and try again for the third time. You know, after that and passing that portion, we did the road test, and I did spectacular on the road test. I remembered, you know, what the speed limit signs were and everything else, and what certain signs mean, and how to properly turn at an intersection, and what to do when you come up on a railroad crossing, and everything went very good the second time around. A stress off of my shoulder. Again, I cried when you know, we came back to the yard, we stopped, put the brakes on, we stepped out of the truck, went back into the office, and she was like, you know, just looking at me for a minute, and she was like, you passed. And hearing those two words, I cried again. Like, tears just started like coming down my face, and I could not stop smiling, because all of that was worth that moment of knowing that I got my license. Like, I'm officially, you know, a truck driver now. Like, I have a CDL license. That was probably one of the biggest achievements for me in my driving career, was getting my license. And to this day, like, it still is like something, like, I'm so just like shocked at myself that I made it through that, because it is hard. It is a lot of information to take in, and you know, it's amazing. It really is. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to go through that experience and learn. Yeah, so that's on that. I passed. I was crying. I called my mom, and my mom was excited for me. And then after my mom, because she before she hung up the phone, she had asked me, did I tell my dad yet? And mind you, yes, my dad was my inspiration for truck driving, but I didn't tell him that I was even going through like this process. I wanted it to be a surprise. So I was like, no, I didn't tell him anything. And I called him. He was at work, and he was like, you know, asking me if everything was okay. And I was like, yeah, everything is fine. You know, do you have a minute? And he was like, yeah, I have a minute. And I told him, I was like, so I got my license. He was like, what do you mean you have your license? You've been driving already for like 4 or 5 years. I was like, no, I got my CDL. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, I went, I'm in Indiana. I came up to Indiana, and I got my CDL. I got my truck driving license. And he was like, no, Lily. I was like, yeah, I did. And he started, my dad started crying on the phone, because he was like, you know, it was such a happy moment for him to have one of his kids, like, you know, take up the profession that he's doing, and has been doing for so many years. He was overwhelmed with like pride and joy that his daughter, you know, is doing the same thing that he's doing. And I was like, it was very nice to share that moment with him. And I started crying all over again, because I'm like, you know, I never see my dad get emotional about anything really. So that was heavy. But it was a really nice moment and a great memory for me, for sure. So after that, I think we went back to the hotel with the shuttle, and the next morning they had us go to the main building, which was probably 5 minutes away from the travel lodge that we stayed in. And I was more than happy to get out of there, because I don't like sharing like rooms with strangers, let alone people that are like, you know, dirty and messy. So very happy to leave from there. We went to the main building, we signed our paperwork for the contract of a year, and then, you know, we got our official start date. So with CR England, they have 2 phases. So your pre-phase, I guess, is like the orientation part, where you do, you know, the whole learning and everything and getting your CDL license, or your permit and your CDL if you don't have your permit already. So that's like the first pre-part. And then the actual part, once you do pass and you get hired and you sign your contract, is phase 1. So phase 1 is where you get your on-the-road mentor, and you have to complete phase 1, you have to, I believe, get 180 hours under your belt of training time with your mentor over the road. So to get from there, once I did that, they got me a rental car, and I went all the way from Indiana back down to Atlanta, because they had opened up, like, I guess, the spaces of availability. So since I already lived in Atlanta, they were like, you know, you don't really need to stay up here, your trainer's going to end up being down in Atlanta anyway, go ahead, you know, back down there. And they were supposed to reimburse me, according to the training coordinator, for that time, and they didn't. I had to end up emailing them to get them to push that through. So that was kind of like in the back of my mind already a red flag for me, that I had to even remind them to reimburse me for what they promised to reimburse me already. But, you know, me being new and not really knowing how things like kind of work, I was like, it's not really a big deal. I can just, you know, maybe it's like a one-off thing, they just forgot. I'm sure there's like a lot of students that, you know, they're trying to push through to phase 1, etc., etc. No big deal. Get down there, check into the hotel that they had for us, which was near the training facility out in Conley. And I met my trainer, Miss Ayana Watson. She was the best trainer to date that I have ever had. And she definitely made like the initial impression I had for CR England well worth it. She was the best part of my experience at CR England, for sure. And unfortunately, after I think me and the guy that I was on the truck with her, because we were in a three-person bunk truck, so it was, you know, the driver's seat here, passenger seat, 1 bed, 2 bed, and then the 3rd bed was like right overhead over this area, over the front and passenger seat. But yeah, I think we were the last 2 trainees that she took on, and then after we got off her truck, she ended up leaving to go to Schneider, I believe. I don't know if she's still there, but if she is, and if she happens to come across this video one day, I definitely do appreciate you for being my trainer and making my experience first starting out trucking memorable, and, you know, having a good experience at that company, because that definitely was the only bright side that I had with CR England, and that says a lot because I haven't even started really driving yet at this point. So back to what I was saying, we go on the road with her, 180 hours. our last day, like I think like a couple of days before we complete our 180-hour mark, they start routing us back down to where we got picked up, which is at the Conley Yard in Atlanta, or Forest Park. And we get there, you know, I'm calling my mom to let her know that I'm coming off the truck, and then, you know, that's gonna be us moving on to the next phase, phase 2. But as we are, you know, getting ready to get off, and Terry, that was the other guy that was on the truck, he ends up, you know, backing into the space and putting down the landing gear. And I don't know how he missed that there was a pothole on the passenger side of the landing gear, like on the pavement. Puts the landing gear down, it's lopsided on that end, unhooks from the trailer a little bit, and as soon as it unlinks from the locking jaw, the trailer, like, just, you see it just leaning over and falling on this poor beautiful Western Star truck that was a personal, like I guess an independent contractor's truck that worked for CR England. And I felt so bad, so bad, because we had to stay there for, I think, at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to kind of like get reports done and you know, wait for contact with the person who owned that truck, so, you know, we could explain the situation to them. And it was just a whole entire mess that could have been avoided had, you know, he had checked properly. But I was just thankful at that point that I was not the one driving, because that would have been a terrible way to start out, you know, my trucking experience. So we go, you know, next day. I'm pretty sure he did get you know, after that from CR England, because that's a pretty like serious thing, like letting a trailer fall on another person's equipment or truck for that matter. So I definitely do believe, if my memory serves me correctly, that he did get fired for that. So next day, I come back after my mom drops me off. I'm waiting for them to check me into the hotel, and then when I check in, I get another roommate, because they loved pairing people with roommates. You would not stay by yourself if they put you in a hotel during your first initial phase, or while you're waiting to be placed on a truck. You're not really by yourself, or at least you're not back then. I don't know how they do it now, but when I was going through, you weren't allowed to like have a space by yourself. So my partner, my first partner that I was supposed to be paired with for phase 2, she did not last long. We did not make it out of the hotel. So I ended up having to go and actually go to the DMV to get my actual license done, and then to also take care of a court date ticket that I had for a parking ticket I had gotten in Atlanta, and get that all sorted. So I left the hotel and then came back and did that. She had apparently told, like, I guess the training coordinator or whatever, because I came back like really late at night, which at the time we didn't have a curfew or anything like that. Like, if you wanted to go and like see family or see whatever, and in my case I went to go and see my boyfriend at the time, and he dropped me back off like I think around like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And the next day, this crazy girl went and told the training coordinator that I was she was worried for like when we were driving the truck or whatever, because I was drunk, or she thought I did drugs or some craziness like that. I don't really remember what she told me or what she told the training coordinator, but next thing I know, they're giving me a call and they're like, hey, we need you to come in for like a random drug test. And I'm like, random drug test? Really? Right after really? Yeah, that's definitely random. You know, they give you a call or you call them and then they're like, yeah, you need to come in for a random drug test. Which, by the way, anyone who does know me, I don't do drugs. I don't really drink like that either. So it's like, you know, for whatever reason, she just didn't want to be partnering with me and didn't like me, even though I hadn't really spoken much of, you know, all of 2 words to the girl, because I wasn't really in the room with her that much once I checked in, because my boyfriend came to get me like almost an hour or so after I checked in. So yeah, that was that. I went to go do the random drug test and it came back, you know, negative, obviously, because again, I wasn't doing any of these things. So they were like, oh yeah, our apologies, we just do these random tests sometimes. And I was like, yeah, okay. But I also told them, I was like, I don't want to be partnered with her. Like, do you have like anybody else that I could be partnered with? And they were like, yeah, of course, no worries. You know, we'll find you another partner. And I was like, okay, good. So that was, you know, the first partner already out within the span of like 24 hours. The next person that they were going to pair me with was this girl that had came from the Utah terminal, and she just finished her 180 hours. So they sent her down and they were like, yeah, you could be partnered with her. So we actually did get to go and drive, but we only drove to from the hotel out to the Forest Park yard, and then that was to try and pick up a truck, but we didn't end up taking that one because there was too many problems wrong with it. So we ended up coming back. And the reason why I didn't really go like continue forward with going as a partner with her was because she was messy. And I don't, like, if I'm going to be teaming with someone on the truck, which I already did not want to do, I wanted to do solo. But with CR England, you can't go solo until after you've completed both phase 1 and phase 2. They don't allow you to go solo during those 2 training phases, obviously. So, you know, my hands were tied, and she was just really messy. She was saying, like, you know, how basically during her mentorship time in phase 1, she wasn't really doing a lot of driving because, like, the trainer was like, you know, her and him were like being like flirty with each other or whatever, and he was basically like driving for her, like when she would get tired and didn't want to drive, and she wouldn't have to drive out like all her hours or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, babes, that's a safety concern. You know, that's that's a safety concern. If you didn't go through all of your 180 hours and you expect me, this lady here, to get in a truck with you and put my life in your, hell no. No. You gotta go. You gotta go. I'm sorry. Get somebody else to do it, okay? Because it's not gonna be me. I would quite prefer to come home to my family in one piece. You're not about to get me. So I called them again, called the training coordinator. I didn't, like, you know, put all her business out there, but I was like, yeah, she makes me feel unsafe, basically. I don't want to be out on the road with her. And they were like, oh, okay, it's no worries. You know, we can pair you with another person if you guys aren't a match. And I was like, okay, because they do have you fill out a form of your preferred partner, which I will be upfront and honest because I found this out the hard way. They don't really follow that form. They do ask you to fill it out before you start your phase 1 training, or at some point before you end your phase 1 training, the training coordinator will call you into the office and have you fill it out. They don't really follow it, because on mine I put, I don't want a smoker because I don't smoke and I hate the smell of like cigarette smoke. It makes me very nauseous. I didn't want a smoker. I didn't want someone who's messy. I would prefer a female. The only part they really followed on that form was that I wanted a female partner. I mean, what's the point of having like a form to fill out or asking people to fill this out if you're not actually going to adhere by it? So just keep that in mind if you do decide to go through like, you know, the training process to get your CDL with CR England. They don't really follow that form, unfortunately. So that's the second partner that came and went. Third one, we actually made it on loads. So I lasted with her for 4 months, and she ended up having to be kicked off of the truck. So we had, it was several things that went wrong. And again, maybe it's just me being too nice sometimes to people, or trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, even though they don't really deserve it. But, you know, that's just, that's just how I am. I try and give people the benefit of the doubt. I try and be nice, especially because I know that we're both like learning. We're both trying to figure it out. It's new. I'm trying to be as patient as I can. So she gets on the truck with me, and I asked her, I was like, so, you know, how did your training go, like with your mentor? And she was like, yeah, it's good. You know, we did a lot of driving. We went through Utah and Colorado and, you know, Pennsylvania and all this other stuff. Like, we covered a good bit of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, how are you with, like night driving? And she was like, oh yeah, I'm great with night driving. Like, you know, I got it. Like, I'm comfortable with night driving. I'm good with day driving. It's, you know, whichever one you prefer, I'm good with. So for me, personally, I like nighttime driving more than I like daytime driving. But if I have to drive during the day, I will. And then also our trainer, when I was out on the road with her, she took us through a lot of different climates, a lot of different like, you know, we went through tunnels, we went over bridges, we went through like mountain passes and stuff. Like, we covered a lot of the stuff that we might encounter while out on the road on our own when we're not with a mentor / trainer anymore. So she told me, you know, I took her word for it, and we went on the road. We had a load to Pennsylvania in Bedford, if I'm not mistaken. So we had a load to Bedford, Pennsylvania, and I think I drove, where were we? We were coming up through, what is that mountain? Tuscarora? I think so. Yeah. We came through, like, I had driven all the way up through, like, Allegheny and Tuscarora, at the entry of Pennsylvania, like the bottommost corner of Pennsylvania when you're entering the state. And then, like, you know, my time was running down. It was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I will say, probably 3 the latest, if I'm not mistaken. And I pulled over at like a little flat part of the mountain before the next part continued, and, you know, we switched over. And before I got out the seat, something told me to ask her. I was like, are you sure you're okay with driving? Like, we're in the middle of a mountain. If you're not okay, we can shut down here, because we are at a travel plaza. So, you know, especially like in mountainous areas, they'll have like a couple of like travel plazas, like kind of spaced out, like spaced throughout the mountain. So that way, truck drivers can stop there if they need to do their break, if they're running out of time, or whatever the case may be. So you're not like stopping along the tunnels in the mountain or whatever. So I made sure to make that disclaimer to her. And she was like, no, I'm fine. It's okay. You can go back and get your sleep. And, you know, we're good. Just to ease my worries, when she started driving, I stayed up for like the first probably like half an hour to 45 minutes until like my eyes were just like, oh, okay, I'm tired. She's doing good so far, you know, she seems okay. I can go to bed, and, you know, that'll be that. Y'all, why in the hell? I go to sleep, I'm probably asleep for like an hour, maybe at most. I wake up because I hear the alarms going off on the side of the truck. Like if the lane departure signals, I hear them going off and they're like beep, 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 beep. I'm like, why is that going off? So I jump up out my sleep. Why the hell this girl about to drive us off the side of the damn mountain? Like, ma'am, she was falling asleep at the freaking wheel. And my thing is, like, one, I was scared shitless because I'm like, oh my God, like, I do not, like, Lord, my life flashed before my eyes. It really did. Like, that was the first scary encounter that I've had while driving trucks. And I wasn't even goddamn driving. And that right there, that instance, that whole situation is why to this day I don't want to do team driving with anybody. I will never, ever do team driving ever again. Ever. I don't want to put anyone else's, like, I don't want to put my life in anyone else's hands. No. You could not pay me enough money in the world to team with someone else again. I don't care if they're an expert driver. I don't care, certainly not if they're a new driver. But I'm not doing it. I'm not. I'm scared out of my doggone mind, and like she's like swerved the wheel to get back like on the road because like she heard it too, and like I guess it woke her up from her dozing off to sleep. And then she stopped. I'm like, listen, stop the truck, like right now. Stop it on the side of the road on the little like what's it, the shoulder. We pulled over on the shoulder underneath like this light post thing before like the next toll booth that was a little bit of ways down the road, and we just stopped there. Like I called dispatch and I was like, listen, we're stopping here. Like she almost ran us off the side of the road. She's falling asleep, and that's I don't feel safe doing, like I don't feel safe at all whatsoever. And I'm supposed to be back there getting my 10 hours of sleep so I can continue driving in the morning. I can't drive right now because I have no more hours, and I'm definitely not letting this truck move if she's the one behind the wheel. So we stopped there, waited until my time came back in the morning, and then, you know, we continued to the shipper when I was able to drive again. And dispatch definitely did give her a call, and she claims that she wasn't falling asleep at the wheel and that she was well rested and all this other stuff. So they were like, oh, okay, well, you know, I guess that we'll just let it go. Like they basically kind of like, you know, sweeped it under the rug or whatever, because she was allowed to stay on the truck after that. So oh my goodness, just thinking about it gets me stressed out again. But we go, you know, deliver the load. We're coming back to be like on our 34-hour reset or whatever, and Pennsylvania is big, so we're still in Pennsylvania after we drive out the rest of my clock after making the delivery. And she was like, you know, she didn't want to stay on the truck for her 34 hours. She was going to call some of her friends, and they were going to go to basically like a casino or something like down in Maryland, which was maybe like a 5-hour drive, I think, from where we were in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. But she got off the truck with like her stuff, and her friends came and picked her up, and she went to a casino in Maryland. And she comes back the next morning. Mind you, while she was gone, I was very happy to just kind of have the truck to myself and be able to calm down and clear my head after that scary situation. I called my mom to check in with her and, like, you know, let her know I was safe, and let my dad know I was safe, and just really just call everybody so like they can know I'm okay, and just kind of like get my mind off the situation, because that was really scary. And anybody who's ever driven through like any type of mountains as a truck driver, yes, like, you know, because we were out in Pennsylvania, that's the Appalachian Mountains, I believe. They're not the biggest mountains, but they are still scary, especially at nighttime, because it gets super duper dark. So anyone who's driven through mountains as a truck driver knows how scary something like that can be. So yeah, thankfully, by God's grace, I was able to, like, you know, come out of that situation without, you know, more serious repercussions happening. But anyway, 34-hour reset comes by. She's coming back to the truck. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, like maybe 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And she forgot her key. So she's like, doon, 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 like banging on the door of the passenger, like, side of the truck. And I'm like jumping out of my sleep because I'm like, what the, like, is someone, like, the heck? Is someone trying to get in the truck or something? So, because I thought that she had her key. She didn't text me or anything to say that she lost her key. So I go and let her in, and then she starts yelling at me. She's like, oh my God, it's cold out here. Why didn't you, like, did you not hear the door? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, girl, I was most definitely asleep. What the hell am I supposed to do if you don't text me and tell me that you lost your key? And then on top of that, like, a call would have sufficed. I have my phone off of silent, and you, like, come on now. And then on top of that, like, you could have just, like, you have, I don't know. This girl was getting on my damn nerves, and I was irritated. I'm not a morning person, and I don't like people waking me up out of my sleep. So I was trying not to catch an attitude with her. She's over here yelling at me, and then she's like, whatever, I'm gonna go and, like, get a smoke or whatever. And I was like, okay, but make sure you smoke outside of the truck. Mind you, again, I told them that I don't want a smoker as a partner. She's like, during our 4 months together or whatever, she smoked, but she smoked away from the truck. So I didn't really have a problem as long as it was not around the vicinity of the truck with the smoke and, like, waft in. Why the hell this woman decides, I don't know if it was just because she had an attitude or she just felt like getting on my nerves, she props the door open on the passenger side and is smoking, like, right there, standing, like, right in front of the passenger side door, smoking, and the smell is wafting in the truck. And I'm like, are you serious right now? What? Ugh. Lord, it took all the doggone patience. I'm like, I asked you nicely not to do that because I don't like the smell of smoke. Now it's becoming a problem because, yes, I let you smoke before as long as it was away from the truck, but now you're just being disrespectful on purpose. It's not like I didn't just tell you 2.5 seconds ago not to do that. Like, you blatantly did it after I asked you politely not to. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to cause a scene or a ruckus or fuss over it. I'm just going to call the DM or the fleet manager, driver manager, however you want to call it. I called her and I let her know, and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for, like, you know, that to happen. Like, I also, like, got the forwarded message about what happened before you guys delivered the last load. Are you okay? Is she okay? I was like, yeah, everything is good, but, like, she's got, like, I can't deal with her on the truck anymore. Like, she's doing way too much, and, like, it's just, I can't deal with her anymore, because after that situation with almost going off the side of the mountain, it's a safety concern. Like, I don't know if she's gonna fall asleep at the wheel again, if she's driving at nighttime again, or, like, whatever the case may be. I don't want to take that chance. And she was like, oh, okay, no, well, unfortunately, like, we're not able to, like, route either of you home right now because I forget what she said, but they were like, they can't route us home at that moment for whatever reason, and we would have to stay out, or I would have to stay out on the truck with her up until, like, they could actually get us home. So I was like, okay, whatever, you know, again, me being nice and not speaking up for myself, I was just like, you know what, it's whatever, I'll just get through this situation and just wait until you know, we can get back down south to Atlanta and get off the truck. So we go, and the last, like, you know, after that phone call, they put us on a load to Texas, and we're heading out. We get there, and we hadn't picked up the load yet, but we get out to Texas, and then the driver manager calls her up, and she's like, yeah, I basically wanted to talk to you about your performance, and you know, there were some safety concerns brought up, and Karen said that she doesn't feel safe with you on the truck, and this, that, and the other, and that you're smoking, and we don't allow smoking in the truck, and, you know, just basically like telling her everything that, you know, I had said. And yes, I did expect her to, like, you know, say something to her about it, but I thought it would be like after, like, I wasn't on the truck with her no more, because like, that clearly presented an issue, because like after she had that call, like, I was getting ready for my shower. I didn't know that she was gonna call her right at that moment, or whatever the case may have been. So I'm getting ready for my shower to go into the pilot and, you know, do my thing, and then come back or whatever so we can continue. She's all heated or whatever on the phone, yelling with the driver manager, I don't know why that bitch is telling you that I did this, that, and that, and blah, blah, blah. No one's falling asleep at the wheel, and like, she is just going off on this lady. And she's like, yeah, I don't know what the hell she thinks people want to bully her, blah, 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 and how she's saying that she's feeling unsafe. And I'm like, okay, let me hurry up and get off this truck and take my shower, because I could tell this is going south very quickly, and I don't want to be in the truck while she's doing all this nonsense. So then she hangs up the phone when she sees me about to go for the door or whatever, and she's like, oh, so you want to bitch and be like a snitch and tell that rhymed. She was like, you want to bitch and like snitch to the driver manager saying that I was doing this and that, making you feel unsafe, and I'm like, yeah, because you almost freaking killed me. What the hell? Am I not supposed to say anything about that? Like, I don't want to die. The hell, you might, because you want to fall asleep at the wheel, but I quite like living, okay? I do. So I don't know why you're having an attitude with me for it, because all I did was tell the truth of the situation. And then she's like continuing to get heated and getting mad, and she was like, oh, I'm gonna beat your ass, blah, blah, blah. Like, trying to fight me on a doggone truck. What? Like, lady, you are crazy. Okay, you're crazy, darling. You are. I'm not about to fight you because you're mad that I told them that you were doing exactly what I said you were doing. Like, the hell? So I'm like, you know what? I'm not about to lose my job or be the one to be kicked off the truck because you want to act a fool. So I'm going to go take my shower, and that's going to be that. Why the hell this lady, I go take my shower. I took my key with me, but when I get back to the truck, she's not like letting me in the door. Like, she's like, I unlocked it, and like she's like pulling the door shut, like, so I won't be able to get in. So I'm like, listen, are you really being this freaking childish right now? Like, are you serious? So I call the driver manager, because again, she's not letting me get in the truck. I'm not about to be standing outside in this splintering heat, having people look at me like I'm crazy, because she's over here like doing this whole mess and commotion or whatever, because people were already looking like, what's going on over there? So I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this with you. I called her. I'm like, hey, yeah, you know, this is happening. She's not letting me in the truck. She's mad about, like, you know, the conversation you just had with her, and she tried to threaten to fight me and all this other stuff. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that's happening. You know, we'll go ahead and get you a hotel. Like, do you have your stuff off the truck? I was like, no, some of my stuff still is on the truck, obviously, that I bought with me, because I just went to take my shower. So like, I only have the stuff that I took from my shower, or to the shower for that matter. She was like, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give her a call. I'm gonna tell her to step out the truck so you can get your stuff. We're gonna send you a lift so you can go to the hotel, and then, you know, we're just gonna have you wait there in Texas and have her go back to, you know, finish the load or whatever, and, you know, you guys are just gonna be separated at this point, if this is like what's happening. And so I was like, okay, you know, it is what it is. So hang up the phone, they call her, get her to like come off the truck. She's still having an attitude, like trying to be abrasive or whatever towards me, and I'm like trying to keep my distance, because I don't really, I'm not the type of person to fight someone. I don't believe in putting my hands on someone, but I will protect myself if someone is trying to come at me crazy. So I'm still keeping my distance. And then, you know, she gets off, like I said, I get in there, get my stuff as quickly as possible, because I really only had like a couple of books, my purse, and like my bedding, and I think I had like some more clothes that I just kind of like threw in a little trash bag thing, and like, you know, dipped out of there when the lift came. So I made sure I had everything off the truck. Lyft takes me to the terminal that they had in Texas, and I sat there and basically waited until, you know, they told me what was going on. So I don't know what happened to that girl after, you know, we got off the truck and parted ways. I don't know if she stayed with the company. I don't know if she got fired. I really didn't want to hear anything else about her at that point, because that had to have been like the craziest like instance of a partner that I've had so far. And all of this is like during my phase 2 of training. So like the next person that they had was literally, you know, the 4th partner at this point, and she was the only one that I could say that I would have rather had her have been my partner like the entire time. But she was a bus driver for the school year, so she only like could drive during the summertime. So she was just coming out and starting the process, and was on her phase 2 as well, obviously. And she was such a breath of fresh air. She was clean, she was sweet and nice, you know, we got along great. It wasn't any tension, it wasn't like anything crazy. Like, she was just a really, really, really nice person. And if she's watching, Michaela, if she's watching, you were the best part. I told you this like when we were on the truck together. If you do see this video, you were the best partner that I've had while at Sierra England. So thank you for being a godsend, literally. But yeah, I only stayed on the truck with her for a month because that's all I had left during my phase 2 training. And that completed, like, I finished out my phase 2 with her, thankfully, for that 1 month. And then she ended up going back to drive for the school district that she worked for during the school year. And I went back down to Atlanta to supposedly get a truck and then go out over the road. And I say quotation marks around getting my truck because this was another problem that I had while I was at Sierra England. They just gave you any old type of raggedy ass like equipment. Now, given I know, like, I didn't expect whatsoever like a brand new, like, what was it? I went in like in 2019, so this was like 2020. Like, I didn't expect like a brand new 2019/2020 or whatever. By no means was I expecting a brand new truck, because my dad had already told me, like, usually they'll typically give you, like, you know, you'll probably 9 times out of 10 end up getting an older model, especially if you're new and coming in. It's not really, you're not likely to get a new model truck. So I was like, okay, I can work with that. It's cool. It's whatever. They, like, I went through like four or five trucks, and they all had like the same thing. Like, my thing was, if I'm going to be like finally like by myself because I'm out of phase 2, I'm not driving anything that is unsafe. And this company, they literally stress while we're in orientation, we prioritize safety. Keyword, safety. But yet you're telling me, or trying to force me for that matter, to drive equipment that's unsafe, because I'm in, like, they would, if you like got assigned a truck, they give you like this form, and it would have like where you inspect the truck and you write down if you see anything wrong with it, any faults, any like, you know, missing like lights or whatever the case may be, anything that's wrong with the truck, basically you write it down in this form. And then, you know, if it can be fixed like quickly, you just pop into the maintenance shop, get a light or whatever minor thing needs to be fixed, and then, you know, be on your way. Or if it's a major repair that like will take a couple of days, they'll put you in a hotel nearby, and then it goes to the maintenance shop, and then they fix whatever it is, and then return the truck back to you, and then you can go. So I kept finding, we're not even going to talk about that, the condition of these trucks was absolutely disgusting, because every truck that I got from them, I don't know if it was just I had a bad luck of like getting trucks of people who had quit the company previously, because they left those things filthy, like absolutely filthy, to the point where anytime I got a new truck, I would literally carry with me from home a bucket, like a mop or a broom, and like cleaning products and everything to spray down and sanitize, because when they said that they cleaned the truck prior to like you going to check it out or whatever, it was never clean at all. I don't know who they hired to clean their trucks, but they clearly need to be fired, because I know that it was still filthy. And I'm not gonna be like putting down my bedding and stuff in a truck that's gross, dingy, and smells like 10 years of cigarettes. Like, that's gross. So I'm like returning the trucks, because I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not taking this because it's unsafe because of this problem, or if I drive it, it does like this rattling thing, or there's like no, I'm not doing that. And I'm going to speak up for myself, because I don't want something to like happen if I take a truck and I just like overlook something, or let y'all like pressure me into taking a truck that's not safe. So the last one, I guess, like the driver manager, the same one, mind you, that I've been working with, she had an issue, because I returned like the third or fourth truck, I think it was. And then she was like, it was after my home time. This is now in August. So we go, I'm off for my home time, I'm coming back. And she was like, we have a truck for you in Atlanta. Don't make any excuses this time to get out of like working or whatever. And my face, I'm already like, excuse me? Like, who are you talking to, lady? So I'm like, I'm brushing it off, because clearly she has an attitude. And I wrote back in the email, I was like, you know, I'll take the truck if it's safe, but if it's not safe, I'm going to return it. You guys need to do a better job at inspecting and cleaning the equipment that you hand out to people, instead of expecting them to just take whatever you give them and just be put in all types of, you know, situations, especially as a company that prioritizes safety. So she I guess she received the email, and then she sent back another email to me saying that, oh, your truck is ready in Atlanta. And then she didn't send any details about the truck. She didn't send the truck number, or like anything whatsoever. The address, she just said, your truck is in Atlanta. That's it. I didn't hear from her for like 2 days. So I'm like, okay, you tell me that you have a truck ready for me after you had an attitude, mind you, and then you don't give any information about the truck. So I reach out again, get ignored. Another 2 days go by. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna reach out again, because I don't know if you're just not reading my email, if you're on vacation, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. At this point, I'm just sitting and waiting. Reach out again, like I said. This is the 3rd time I reached out, and she basically responds and was like, I told you the truck was in Atlanta. Why did you not pick it up? And I wrote back, because again, clearly that, like, you could tell when someone writes an email, like the tone of voice that they wrote it in. So I'm like, okay, at this point, I don't know what to do. So I like CC'd like the safety operations manager and her when I emailed her back, and wrote this long email addressing like all the problems, like from the beginning of like, you know, the driver reimbursement thing when I first came down there, which was the first pay issue I had with them. The fact that when I hit phase 2, they were supposed to like basically do my pay while I was out during that time, and they didn't. They only paid me for like, I think like 2 days, and then the days I was supposed to be marked available, because I was available, even though I was waiting at home because I was waiting on a truck, that's still available because I'm able to work and take a load. I just don't have a truck. I'm waiting for a truck. So I had reached out to her about that, and her response basically was like, oh, I'm sorry that you're not getting paid for waiting at home. You need to be marked available, and you weren't available. Waiting at home is not being available, blah, blah. Like, she was just going like off a tangent and basically saying like, oh, you're not getting paid because you're waiting at home. I am so sorry that we don't want to pay you for you waiting at home, basically like with an attitude. And even though she knows I'm waiting for a truck, and it was discussed because again, we had conversations that I was going home after my phase 2 to wait for a truck. I am available, but what am I going to carry the load on my back? Like, what the heck? I have to have a truck to do that. So if I'm going home to wait on a truck, that's still being available. So therefore, I'm still supposed to be getting paid for that time. Like 2 plus 2 is supposed to equal 4. It's not adding up. So there was that whole situation. And then they didn't want to pay me properly for like the so-called guarantee that they were supposed to be giving out. And I say guarantee because that falls into, my camera is about to die. That falls into like, you know, the availability thing. So I'm like, yeah, y'all are playing with my money, and it's not adding up to what y'all told me I was supposed to be getting paid during this whole ordeal. So like at this point, my patience went from like down here to up here, and that's the last straw. Like you're not about to be playing with my money, because I'm already out on the road. I'm away from like, you know, my mom, my dad, my sisters, my brothers, like my friends, my boyfriend. Like I'm away from everybody at that time to be coming out here doing this by choice, of course, but like it's supposed to be a fair trade-off, and y'all are treating me like, 1, I have to be out here and taking your bullshit, and 2, I'm just supposed to lie down and take it while y'all are paying me bare shit minimum. That's not what I signed up to be paid or what I was told I would be paid. So it needs to be fixed quickly, or I'm just about to not be working here. Like, that's what it is. So I emailed all of this to him. And of course, you know, me being me, whenever I'm doing something or I'm emailing something, receipts are listed everywhere. Every email that I ever had between me and that DM, everything, every problem with pay, every like other person that was CC'd in any follow-up emails was attached in that email, and her being snarky and having attitude about the truck thing was listed in there. It was a very long email. And then he gets back to me. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry that you know, this happened, and you know, I'll surely be sure to handle the situation. We don't approve of this behavior from our fleet managers, and I will definitely be talking to Dana and doing all of this stuff, you know, to get this corrected for you. You know, we're gonna go ahead for the days that you had been waiting at home for the truck for it to be ready. We're gonna go ahead and give you layover pay for that. It's not the guarantee, but it's still, you know, something to kind of correct the situation, because you are right, you should have been being paid for that, etc., etc. Basically, like, thoroughly apologizing for, you know, the DM and her being a jerk about the situation, basically, and not trying to help and correct anything. So let me plug in my phone really quickly. There we go. Ooh. Okay. Oh, it does not want to stay still. Okay, there we go. So yeah, that was pretty much that. Like, this lady was just going off on a tangent and being rude and disrespectful. He wrote back and apologized, and you know, had my patience level not been where it was, I probably would have accepted the apology and been like, you know, yeah, we can move past this, blah blah blah, and just like kept putting up with their nonsense. But I couldn't do it, especially because even after he apologized, that same DM comes back about the truck thing again and was like, yeah, I'm waiting on Eric to let me know if the truck is ready, which was, I guess, another like person that worked like as a DM or whatever. But she was like, yeah, again, you better not make any excuses, and like stop like CCing the safety operations manager, because he doesn't have time to be reading your false emails about things that didn't happen, and like you forcing us to pay you for time that you spent at home when that's not how this company works, blah blah blah. I'm like, lady, I gave you 1, 2, 3 too many chances of you talking to me crazy. I was like, you know what? Respectfully, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. Y'all could take, I know that like I signed a 1-year contract or whatever, but I'm not doing this for a year. I was told when, you know, I signed up for the company, I would be being paid like X amount of money, right? And it was supposed to be like $900, like $900, like $1,000 to $900, right? And not one of my checks, not one, was over $500 repetitively, outside of like the first orientation like week bonuses or whatever that they give you to like fool you into thinking that your money is actually adding up to what they told you they would pay. But after that, like I think 2 or 3 weeks of being paid that, it was never over like $500. And I know that the numbers that they list are like before taxes, so I would have at least like given them that. But I'm like single and I don't have like, I shouldn't be paying that much in taxes, and I wasn't paying that much in taxes. They just weren't paying me what I was supposed to be paid, and that's, for lack of a better word, like bullshit. It really is. And I just wasn't willing to like continue with a company that had already lied so much, They say they prioritize safety, but they really don't. They half-ass train their like employees and drivers, and it's like, if that's the type of people that y'all are hiring and that's how y'all do things, outside of the very few and limited people that I actually had a good experience with at that company, I entirely regret that experience. I wish I would have picked somewhere else to get my license, so maybe I wouldn't have had such a bad experience. I wish that, you know, I could have done a lot of things differently during that time of like choice for starting my trucking career. And yeah, after that, because it literally was such a bad and traumatizing experience for me, especially having almost been like killed by one partner because she almost ran us off the road, I left trucking after that. I stayed off for 2 years and just went back to trying to work a normal job at my boyfriend's company at the time that he had started. And you know, that was that, because I was just so, even though I loved the idea of trucking so much and I wanted to like stay with trucking, that company left such a bad taste in my mouth. And obviously, like I did mention at the beginning of the video, if you don't complete your training or your contract with the company that you sign with, you do have to pay that money back. So obviously, because I did not finish my year, I think I was at like 5.5 months with them under my belt when I did leave. So I had to pay for the remainder of the bill that was left. And even now, I'm still like paying that off. I'm almost done paying it off, but I still am definitely paying on that. So that experience definitely is something that I do regret. And as to like the beginning of my truck driving career, but nonetheless, it is an experience that did, you know, get my foot in the door and give me my truck driving license. So I can't regret it entirely, because I was able to start driving and gain like the necessary experience. But I would definitely say to any new truck drivers out there that are coming in and want to pursue truck driving seriously, definitely do your research. Ask other drivers that may drive for the company that you're interested in driving for. Ask them their honest opinions about where they work. 9 times out of 10, they will be honest with you. They're not going to bullshit you like a recruiter will, and feed you lies like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get paid, you're gonna get paid this, and then you don't see not a goddamn red cent of that money. Like they really be put, like they try and get people out here. They really do, especially because they know like the drivers coming in, we're new, we're naive, we just are fascinated by the fact that yeah, you can make a good bit of money out here trucking. And they like feed on that, and they're like, yeah, let's, you know, tell them all these like dangle money basically in front of them, and then not pay them that, but that'll get them like locked in basically, because either way, like they're gonna get their money from you, because if you leave after that period like I did, you still have to pay back that money. So definitely do your research. I would not recommend, having been a driver at CR England and having the experience that I had, I wouldn't recommend that company to anybody. I would say definitely go somewhere else if you can't avoid it, and maybe like you want to just go there to get your experience. I will say definitely keep in mind what you're signing up for, and if you're only going through it just to get your like 3 to 6 months of experience, or however long you want to stay there, if that's what you got to do, then you got to do what you got to do, but get in and get out. I definitely would not recommend staying at a company like CR England for long-term longevity of a career. I would not. It just is what it is. Like, there's plenty of companies out here that are far better suited for long-term careers, and then there's companies out there that, yeah, they are better, but they won't take you unless you have a certain amount of experience. So then you're kind of pushed back to be like, okay, you know, those companies that aren't so great may be like your stepping stone to use, and then you kind of segue into the company that you really want to be with to, you know, meet that requirement of having a certain amount of time of experience, and then you know, moving forward from there and having that be where you stay doing your trucking career. So it really depends on the person, and you know, what you feel like you want to put up with and what you don't. But definitely take it with a grain of salt. Don't let these, like, you know, recruiters get you and try and, like, you know, push you into unsafe situations or pair you with people that aren't safe, or, you know, just take their words for, you know, what they're telling you. Always, like, try and read between the lines. Talk to people that already drive for these companies. Look on reviews of, like, people who may have worked there in the past, but also do take those with a grain of salt sometimes. You know, it is what it is. There's definitely negatives to being in truck driving, as I've found, having almost been in now for 2 years, because I did come back to truck driving after, I want to say I came back in 2022. Yeah, I came back in 2022. October of 2022 is when I came back to trucking, and I will make another video that'll probably be my next video that I make, is when I'm getting back into trucking. Obviously, I'm in a truck right now, but when I came back into trucking, the company that I work for now is not the company that that I got back into trucking with. It was a different company, and I'll touch on that in that video that I make. But yeah, this was, you know, the experience, like I said, of how and why I got into truck driving, and all the craziness that I dealt with in orientation, and the phase 1 and phase 2 process, and, you know, everything that happened. But it's getting late, the sun is setting, and I have to go and run a couple of errands since I'm still on my off time. But yeah, I definitely will say that, you know, I'm glad for the positive experiences that I've had. I'm also glad for the, you know, learning experiences that I've had, and it is what it is. You know, you can't go back and change things that have already happened, but I definitely, if I can, would like to avoid other people that are new and coming in, you know, going through the same negatives that I did, if I can. So definitely, you know, as I wrap this video up, don't forget to, like, you know, obviously watch the video, like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know if you're interested in driving, or need suggestions, or just want to pop in and say hi from, you know, truck driver to another truck driver. And just join the CandidLee family as I go through my trucking journey, and also touch on other things in my life, and also with other content on the channel that I'll be doing with automotives and things like that. So yes, it's been lovely making this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.